So, just a brief introduction for our speaker today. Lisa Hammett is a dynamic transformational and TEDx speaker, an international best-selling author, a certified positive intelligence PQ coach, and a wellness expert, helping leaders and organizations in healthcare create work-life balance to increase productivity, profitability, and well-being. With over 26 years of experience as a leader in the corporate retail industry, Lisa knows firsthand the toll the stress and burnout can take on individuals. After a transformative health and wellness journey, where she lost 65 pounds, Lisa decided to dedicate her life to helping others achieve their health and wellness objectives. Lisa has positively impacted the life of thousands of individuals, empowering them to make lasting changes. Her first book, From Burnout to Best Life, How to Take the Charge of Your Health and Happiness, reached bestseller status in 16 categories globally. Please welcome Lisa now.
Hello, everyone. I am delighted to be with you all today. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Soma. So we are going to be discussing the importance of life-work balance for our health, job satisfaction, and productivity. And it's my intention that by the end of our time together today, that you will have some very practical tools that you can use to create more balance in your life, whether it's in your personal life or in your work life. So what I would like to do is kind of share a little backstory on myself so you can understand maybe a little more why I'm really passionate about this topic. Now, Soma shared a great overview of my life, but I kind of want to share how I reached burnout and how that has really impacted my life. And hopefully you're not in the same place. So back in 2005, after a 26-year career in the corporate retail sector, I reached burnout. And I equate it to slamming into a cement wall. I was done. I had no more mental bandwidth to continue in my current course of action. As Soma had mentioned, I was 65 pounds overweight. I was suffering from chronic migraines, digestive issues. My marriage was strained. And I remember waking up one morning and looking outside, and the world just looked gray, devoid of color. And it wasn't in the middle of the winter. It wasn't an overcast day, and everything just looked gray. And it really kind of was a wake-up call for me because that's a clear sign of depression. And I remember having a conversation with my husband, and he said, I don't care what you do, but you have got to leave that job because it is literally killing you. And he was right. So in a moment of desperation, I left that long-term career at a high salary without a strategy of how to replace my income, which resulted in bankruptcy down the road. And I share all this with you to say that it all could have been prevented. Had I done a better job managing my stress and creating more balance in my life, I would have prevented burnout, and I would have been more intentional about how I left that industry, and certainly could have prevented a lot of financial hardship. So, excuse me, I don't know where you are in your life journey, but I truly hope that you are nowhere near where I was. And if you are exhibiting any sort of warning signs, like those tension headaches or indigestion, or maybe you're not sleeping well, these are wake-up calls. And if you don't heed them, they will lead to far more serious health problems, and it can be very debilitating. So the tools, again, that I'm sharing with you today can help you prevent really where I was. So let's move on. All right. So when you hear that term life-work balance, what does it mean to you? So if you would put in the chat for me, what is life-work balance? What does it mean? Working reasonable hours at work, when I get home, clear boundaries, not being overwhelmed, to be present and available. I love all these. Oh, these are all so good. Oh, that's a good one. Yes, when you're at work, you focus on work, but when you're outside of work, that's where you focus on your life. Now, what do you all think? Is it possible to have complete life-work balance? Having a perfectly balanced life, is that reality? No. And why not, Lynn? Changes daily. Ooh, what causes it to change? Would love to hear. Life is messy and complicated. Oh, yes, it is. It sure is. It is gray. That it is. Takes constant reassessing. It does. It does. You are so right. So here is the exact definition. And honestly, I'm not sure if I even completely agree with it, but there is a component that I fully support. So life-work balance is a state of equilibrium where an individual's career and personal life are in alignment, both being equally important. So really what I want you to notate here is that both are equally important. Now, it is physically impossible for us to simultaneously focus on two things at the same time. Our brains do not work that way. We can't do it because when we focus on one thing, we're going to then leave something else, not as much attention. Now, we can certainly go back and forth, but really what I want you to get out of this presentation is that if you are experiencing a pretty significant imbalance, either in one direction or the other, that is a wake-up call and it's time to make some changes and do some things in order to create a little more alignment. All right, so let's talk about what are some of the reasons for an out of balance life. So unrealistic work expectations. You know, today's job market is crazy and corporations, businesses are restructuring, there's layoffs, people are doing the job of multiple people, sometimes with salary compensation, oftentimes with not or in a decreased salary capacity, and this can cause a lot of stress. Anybody there ever been in that situation where you just feel like so much is being thrown at you at work that you don't know what you're going to do? Yep, thumbs up. Yes, it is really stressful. And when we're working all the time, clearly we lose focus on our family. Now, what happens when you have all these balls in the air and you're just juggling, and more balls get thrown on you? What will happen? Anybody? What happens? You get buried. Yes, you do. And some will fall. And how do you feel when you start dropping balls? How does that emotionally? Oh, reaching burnout. I'm so sorry to hear that, Soma. Yes. It is super stressful. And when we're in that situation, it is incredibly difficult to prioritize and manage responsibilities. Even though we know that some are, maybe more important than the other, but, when it's reaction by fire constantly, it is incredibly overwhelming. Now, if you are in a new position, or you're promoted, maybe you've left your organization, these all involve a significant learning curve. And studies have shown that it actually takes a minimum of 6 months to fully acclimate into a new position. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do your job. It just means that to feel really comfortable and to be working at ultimate efficiency, it can take sometimes up to a year, depending upon how technical that job is. So that learning curve can significantly create a balance. an imbalance. And then a loss of job. Has anybody lost their job? I would hope not. Or maybe a loved one has lost their job. Because that is super stressful. I know my husband was out of work for a year and he was the primary breadwinner. And this was a long time ago, but it was incredibly difficult. And especially if you're having to deal with insurance and where's the money going to come from, it's incredibly stressful. And then illness. Now, I would hope that none of you have had a scary health diagnosis, but you may have known of somebody, or maybe you just got the flu really bad, or God forbid, COVID, or you had a surgery and it was debilitating and it took a while to recover. Well, in situations like that, it's really difficult to show up well in any area of your life. So illness can really play a big factor, whether it's for you or for people that you care for, which kind of then goes into the caring for aging parents. Does anybody here have any aging parents that are requiring care? Yep. I feel you, Lynn. It's hard, especially, if there's mobility or cognitive issues involving. And the sad thing is oftentimes financially, it's not doable to provide them with professional care that they need. So it then becomes a responsibility of a loved one. And it's so stressful, especially if that loved one has a family of their own. So they're trying to raise their family, they're trying to take care of themselves and their job, and then care for their aging parents. So, all of these factors can be super overwhelming. So these are just some that I came up with, but I'd love to hear from you. Please put it in the chat. What are some other reasons that you have experienced that have created an out of balance life for you? I'd love to hear. More children. Oh, yes, that will definitely do it. You love them, but man, they're a lot of work. Loss of interest. Oh, yeah. That can kind of turn into apathy. That can definitely be an issue. Work culture that believes overworking is being incredibly busy. Oh, yeah. So wrong. So wrong. Another one, too, that I didn't mention is moving. Yeah, COVID certainly did impact. If you're moving from state to state, or maybe you're moving out of the country, wow, that can really create an imbalance because all of the resources that were so easily accessible to you don't exist anymore. So it can be challenging. Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. You're putting in amazing comments. All right. So what are some of the side effects? So I talked about my side effects, and certainly at the top of the list, when our life gets severely out of balance, really the first thing to go is our physical health and our emotional health. And this is due to, especially if it's work related, that we are not giving ourselves proper self-care. Not bathing per se, but what I mean is we're not sleeping well. We're just grabbing whatever we can to eat when we're on the run, or we're skipping meals. And oftentimes, any sort of activity, whatever, goes out the window because we think, well, we don't have time for that. And the sad thing is when our life gets out of balance, really the first thing that we should be focusing on is our physical health and well-being, because when that suffers, everything suffers. And then the difficulty of the sleeping. How many here, please put in the chat, really struggle with sleep, either going to sleep or you wake up in the middle of the night and your brain is just going? Yes, Chelsea, I get it. Oh, lots of people. So I'm going to be sharing a technique that you can use later on in the presentation that can help you go back to sleep. And there's no medication involved. And I tell you, it really works. But here's the thing about sleeping is when we're severely sleep deprived. Oh, you haven't slept well since you had your first child. Yeah, and midlife can do that to you too. That's rough. Sleep deprivation can have symptoms of dementia. How great is that? We all want to exhibit symptoms of dementia. And it can also cause a spike in cortisol, which can cause weight gain just by itself. And then it also causes cravings for high fat, high calorie foods, which is kind of a double whammy. So weight gain is imminent often. And it also severely compromises your immune system. So you're more likely to become ill. Side effects also include that stress, anxiety, overwhelm, all of those symptoms that I had shared earlier. And then that overcommitted schedule, where those balls start dropping. We talked about that. And you feel like, life is just happening to you and that you just have no control. And then again, losing that focus and mental clarity. And all of this combined can really take a hit on productivity. And if you're working all the time, you're spending less time with family, friends, and that can cause communication problems. It can certainly cause resentment. And then all of these can lead to burnout, which I would hope that no one here is experiencing that. Now, we often think of just the individual person when it comes to being out of balance and how that can impact, but it has a direct impact on the employer as well when employees are not having more balance in their life. And largely, there's more absenteeism. Employees are ill or they're just very dissatisfied with their job, and quiet quitting can happen. There's clearly more healthcare costs on behalf of the employer because more employees are ill, and higher payroll costs because who takes on the work? It's the people who are left there, and they're, doing the job of multiple people. And then this creates unhappiness and poor productivity and higher turnover, which ultimately compromises workplace culture. And if an organization has a reputation for churning and burning employees, they're going to have a very difficult time finding quality candidates. And it's just this self-perpetuating horrible cycle. So the organizations that really focus on the health and well-being of their employees are the ones that have higher retention, that are more profitable. It's just a better culture. So let's now really get into how do we create that balance in our life? Well, the first thing is asking for help. And I would love to hear how many of you struggle with asking for help. It's also very common. Me, of course. Yes. Why is it that I used to until my first burnout? Oh, goodness. Hope you're not on your second burnout. Why is it so hard to ask for help? What is the reason for that? Because I used to be one of those people as well. I couldn't ask for help. Any thoughts on that? Don't want to burden someone? Yep. Don't want to appear weak? Oh, yes, absolutely. And anybody who's a wannabe perfectionist out there, yeah, embarrassment, ego. Those wannabe perfectionists that are like, well, I'm not going to ask for help because I know I can do it better, can do it quicker. Think you can do it all. Yes, Evelyn, yes. Oh, that's so not true, unfortunately. Here's the thing. When we don't ask for help, if it severely impacts our emotional state and our productivity, we have to. We have to. And I know it's scary, and especially for leaders in an organization. Anybody here a leader in an organization? How comfortable are you asking for help? Because that can be scary. You're like, well, you're supposed to have all the answers, right? You're a leader. Well, here's the thing. Nobody has all the answers. I don't care how knowledgeable you are. Nobody has all the answers. And what example are you telling your team if you don't ask for help? You're basically telling your team that, well, you'd have to figure it out for yourself, which can completely cause burnout within your organization and cause a lot of unnecessary frustration. So again, I know it's hard. And back in 2020, I had a knee replacement and it went, well, let's just say the recovery was really terrible because I had a hard time tolerating any kind of pain meds. So I had a really difficult recovery and I was forced to ask for help, or I should say, accept help. One of my very good friends agreed to come and stay with us for a week post-surgery. And I'll tell you, it was really humbling because I was one of those people that I will never ask for help. I can't do it. It's an inconvenience for other people. I'll just power through it. But the thing is, I couldn't. My husband couldn't watch me 24/7. He had to work. So my friend came, and what I learned in that whole experience is that when you really need help, those closest to you will know that. And most likely, they will offer help. And they're not going to offer if they don't want to help you. So when you say, no, I got this, I'll do it on myself, it's actually off-putting to those that care about you because they think that, well, I know that they really need my help, but they won't accept it. What does that say about me? And it just gets so convoluted. You know what? Save yourself a lot of time and stress and just ask for help. It's okay. Yes, people want to be able to help. They do. It makes people feel good. I'm sure you can attest to that as well. Okay, I'll get off my asking for help soapbox. So setting healthy boundaries, that's another big one. So I'd like to hear from you in the chat. What are healthy boundaries to you? I know there's a couple up there, but name for me a healthy boundary. What is that? There is saying no and protecting your energy, but what else? Yep, being able to say no. Saying no. How easy is it to say no? Or let me rephrase this. How many people here struggle? Not easy. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Knowing when it is okay to say yes. Yeah, it can be hard. It can be hard because, well, for multiple reasons. One, we don't want to offend anybody, right? We want to be liked. And if it's in the workplace, if we say no, what's that going to say about ourselves? We're not a team player? Yeah, that doesn't look good either. But going back to that comment, I liked that comment about when to say yes. Someone once told me this, and this really resonated with me, that when you're constantly saying yes to something, you are inadvertently saying no to other things. And what you're inadvertently saying no to, are those things more important than what you're always saying yes to? I would say 9 times out of 10, that is the case. You're saying yes to the wrong things because you don't want to offend anybody. It's what you've always done. Maybe you're in an organization and you want to get promoted and you want to take on additional responsibility and you want to show that you're capable of doing a lot of things. That's all well and good. But again, it goes back to the comment of, learn when it's the right thing to say yes. You've got to learn how to say no. And it's all in how you say it. So I'm going to give you 2 examples. One, work related. So let's say that you have 2 big projects that you have been working on at work, and they're due by Friday. And then your boss comes to you and says, I need you to do this as well. So they give you another task, and they want that done by Friday as well. And you know that if you take on that task, that not everything will get completed by Friday. It's just not reality. It's not going to happen. So you don't want to just say, nope, can't do it. Because if you do say that, and then you start to complain about how full your workload is, that's just going to look like you're whining and making excuses. What you could say is, I'm concerned about taking on this additional task because I have these 2 other things that I've been working on, and the due date is Friday. If I could move one of those to next week, or if it would be acceptable, this additional task, if I could do that by next week, that would be great. Or another possible solution would be if you happen to know of somebody else that you work with who might have a little more bandwidth that could take on that task, then you might recommend them. So what you're saying is that you are conscientious and you care about doing the right thing the right way, but you're also providing a solution. And when you do that, it is received so much more gracefully than if you were to say, nope, can't do it. So the likelihood is that you will probably get one of the recommendations that you mentioned. So that's saying no. Now, I'm going to give a personal example. So let's say you've had a really full couple weeks. You've been traveling for work, you have been working late, and Thursday is one day you've kind of blocked your meetings a certain way. So you know that on Thursday, you can spend at home and you can spend more quality time with your family, or if it's just you, that you can just spend a nice quiet evening by yourself to kind of rest and recharge. And let's say a colleague who you respect, or maybe it's a good friend, you haven't seen him in a while, they call and ask you, hey, let's go to happy hour on Thursday. It would be great to get together. How many of you, and be honest, I'm not judging in any way, how many of y'all would just say, well, you know what, I'm going to go out with them? Just be honest. And if you wouldn't, that's great. No, oh, good for you, Bethany. That's great. I love it. No? Wow, I'm impressed. Because when I ask that question, I often get a lot of yeses. And you shouldn't, because that's a healthy boundary. You shouldn't do that. So I love that you say that. And I probably wouldn't. As an introvert, I need to protect my regeneration time. Absolutely. And whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you all need to recharge. So that is amazing. And it's all the way in which you say it. You could say something like, oh, wow, that sounds wonderful, but I'm already committed. You don't have to give a dissertation as to why you can't attend. And you certainly don't have to apologize. In fact, never, ever, ever apologize for saying no. You're putting yourself first, and that is always best. All right. And then protecting your energy. So what do I mean by that? What is protecting your energy? Somebody just put that in the chat. Protecting your energy. Think about energy suckers. What drains your energy? I'll tell you, for me, one thing that drains my energy is watching the news. So I don't. In fact, I haven't watched the news in decades. I'm just going to be transparent. I figured if it's that newsworthy, I'm going to hear about it. And especially during an election year, it just gets so contentious and I get so irritated. And I'm like, no, I'm just not going to do that. I am not going to do that. Yep, I hear you, Chelsea. I'm not. So protect your energy. Yeah. It does. It frustrates people. And, frustrating is oftentimes it's not even really news. It's just people bashing each other, and it's so negative. And protecting your energy also involves who you surround yourself with. So if there's somebody in your sphere of influence, it might be a coworker, it could be, hopefully it's not a close family member. It could be just somebody in your circle who is always negative. they're just every word that comes out of their mouth is negative, negative, negative. How does that make you feel? Can suck the life out of you. And when you are in that type of environment repetitively, it drains your energy. And we call those individuals energy vampires because they literally suck the life out of you. And that can be for circumstances as well. Maybe it's a social environment. And when everybody in that group gets together, it turns into a big complaining fest about whatever. And that just can drain you. So protecting your energy is so important because you want that positive mindset. All right, getting organized. So kind of referencing again, all those balls being thrown at you. Does anybody feel like their schedule is controlling them and they have no control over their schedule? Anybody? Because that's a horrible feeling if that's the case. And I'll tell you, I used to feel that way, but I don't anymore. I am sometimes, it can happen sometimes. Here's the thing. We all have the same amount of hours in the day. It's how we use them. And I have found blocking particular time in the day for maybe it's a break and maybe you only have a 10-minute break or it's a lunch, or what I have found very effective when it comes to work is doing a power hour block of time. And what I mean by that is you're eliminating all distractions, you're turning off all notifications, you're locking yourself in an office, and you are just heads down, 100% focused on one thing for an hour without interruptions. And I will tell you, it is amazing what you can accomplish. And that feeling of accomplishment will then continue throughout the day because you know how productive you can be. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you about all different kinds of systems on how to do this, but bottom line, use what works for you, whether it's setting alerts on your phone, blocking time on your calendar. Maybe it's actually handwriting it. Whatever works best for you. But bottom line, you control your calendar. And if people have too much access to you and you can't get things done, I hate to say it, it's on you. All right. So, vacation. Now, some of you are probably going to roll your eyes when I say this, but when I was in the corporate sector, I really hated going on vacation. And you're probably thinking I'm crazy, but here's why. It would require so much effort and overtime to button up everything, pass it off, anticipate any problems that would arise while I was on vacation, that I worked ridiculous hours, was so stressed out that by the time I did go on vacation, it took me a good couple days to really relax and unwind. And then that gave me a couple days to really enjoy myself. That was great. But then by day 5 and 6, I was starting to anticipate the crap that I was going to walk into on Monday morning. And by the last day of my vacation, I had really ruined it because I was so stressed out about what I was going to walk into. And it never failed. It didn't matter how well I did as far as clearing my calendar and, looping in people who could handle things. It was an absolute mess when I returned. And a lot of it could have been the industry, but bottom line, it was so stressful that I felt like I was being punished for going on vacation. Has anybody ever felt that way? And I would certainly hope that you haven't. But if you do, yes. Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. It's terrible. And it's so frustrating because vacations are meant to clear your head, rest and recharge. It's not for, when you're in the Bahamas, I'm still going to schedule a Zoom meeting with my team, or I'm going to get on a conference call, or I'm going to check my email every day. That is not disconnecting and going on vacation. This is one thing every time. Oh, yes, it just is terrible. It's so frustrating, so frustrating. So you never get to recharge. And this is one thing that the European culture does beautifully. I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you live in Europe and you graduate from university, your first job starts with 4 to 6 weeks of vacation, sometimes 8, starting right out of school. How many years has it taken you to earn 4 weeks of vacation? I'll tell you, for me, it was 10 years. And by the time I reached it, I couldn't even take it all because it was never the right time to go on vacation. Well, I'm sorry. That is a load of you know what. It is just, you have got to go on vacation and you have to completely, yes, the right to disconnect. You have to do that. Now, moving into the digital detox, remember those days, and I am totally dating myself here. Remember when we didn't have cell phones and computers? What did we do? What did we do when we weren't on devices all the time? We actually had conversations with people. Wow, what a concept. We actually had conversations around the dinner table, oftentimes. And it's really sad that we are so connected and we're so accessible. More time to read. Yes, absolutely. We have just become so accessible. There's like 30 different ways that people can access you. Facebook Messenger, LinkedIn Messenger, Slack, other forms like that, email, chat, WhatsApp, texting. You get it. It's insane. You've got to go through a digital detox. It is so important. And then get moving. So that's not a no-brainer. I know it's kind of a no-brainer. But, a lot of people don't like to exercise. I get it. I do, especially walking, but it's not for everybody. So when I say moving, I want you to think about something that you enjoy doing that involves moving your body. And maybe it's dancing. Maybe it's playing with your kids or your pets. Or maybe it's swimming or gardening. I don't know. Find something. But the thing is about moving is the act of moving itself creates those endorphins, which elevate your mood. And if you take it outside in the natural light, that will further elevate your mood. All right. Now, the next part of this is all different ways to do something for yourself every day that brings you joy. Now, what I mean by that is it's not that bucket list trip that you desire to go on. It's not having your dream home or getting that luxury vehicle or maybe getting that promotion at work. I'm not saying those aren't great things, but if you base your happiness and your daily joy on those things, you're going to lead a miserable life. And I hate to say that. And I'm sure you can attest that there are millions of people out in the world who have so many resources that you would think, wow, their life is perfect. And they're miserable. They're absolutely miserable. And it's really sad. It's because they don't take the time to really do those small things and appreciate those small things that every day brings us joy. So when was the last time, for example, that you savored a cup of tea or coffee? Put it in the chat. And what I mean that is that you smelled it and you savored the flavor and you just, as you swallowed it, you just felt the warmth. When's the last time? Sunday. Yay. Yesterday. Oh, you guys are great. Oh, that's so good to hear. Well, good. Because, when I drink my coffee this morning, I love it. When I drink my coffee, it's kind of a meditative experience. I love it. I've got my favorite mug and I'm just smelling it. And then it's just, it's such a great experience. Now, I'm going to take it a step further. When was the last time you were fully present and engaged on what you were eating? Because when life gets out of balance, we often don't take the time to eat or eat well. And we inhale our food, especially at work. How many of y'all eat at your desk? Probably a good portion. I did. I never went out to lunch. Didn't have time. And I'd hate to say it, I would be engrossed on a project and I'd be working on this project. And before I know it, I had eaten my lunch and I could not remember what I ate. That's crazy. But if we took the time to like slow down and savor what we eat, and I'm not sitting there, like moaning and groaning and in ecstasy when you eat. I mean, let's not be silly, but really taking the time to taste it and notice the texture and maybe the color of it. And you don't have to spend hours doing that. But what it will do is it will force you to slow down, for one, which is a great thing when you're eating, not only for your digestion, but also for your weight maintenance. So just think about that. Now, practicing gratitude. How many of y'all practice gratitude? I would love to hear. Put in the chat. It's common. And I know for some people, awesome. Hey, Mignon. I know for some, it's easier said than done. So gratitude is really expressing thankfulness for those smaller things in life that we take for granted. It could be having clean running water. It could be having a roof over our head. It could be having access to healthy foods. Try to do it daily. I love that. I love that. Does anybody know what really the scientific reason why gratitude is so powerful? Anybody venture a guess? Because there is a reason really why it works so well. It does stop the focus on yourself. Any other thoughts? Has to do with how our brains operate. Give you a hint. Yes, it does. So, yes, it shifts into a positive mindset. And here's the thing, our brains cannot simultaneously think a negative thought and a positive thought. It's physically impossible. You can't. And when you're constantly focused on the negative, that's all you're going to see. And life will be very hard and challenging and difficult. But when you can focus on the positive, you will see more positive things in life. And even when challenges arise, because they always will, you will be able to see a gift and opportunity in the situation. What is a learning in this? Or at the very least, you can accept a challenging situation and move on. So practicing gratitude forces you to focus on the positive. And again, the more you think on the positive, the more it impacts your belief system, which then drives your behavior, which then helps you to accomplish really what you want in life. So it's very, very powerful. And then there's playing with your pets. Any pet owners out there? I have a crazy dog and a cat, and there are babies. Yes, I love our babies, our fur babies. I know they're not for everybody, and this isn't a plug to go out and get a pet if you don't have one, because I know that they can be, costly, and especially when you travel. But did you know that studies show that when you own pets, pet owners actually live up to 10 years longer than those who do not have pets? And the reason being is because they do show you unconditional love. I mean, you can't say that, I hate to say, from a lot of humans. If you're having a bad day and you yell at your pet, they don't care. Well, they do care, don't get me wrong, but they'll still love you and they'll still try to shower you with affection. So, all right. So meditate and devotions. Now, what I'm referring to here is those spirituality practices that we have. And, some are faith-based. And again, you don't have to be religious to experience the benefits of this. For those who are religious, prayer has often been known to be very calming and grounding. But, devotions could look like just really being outside and experiencing nature and putting you in positions where you can experience awe. Like, have you ever been hiking and you get up to like a mountaintop and you look out over, like a valley, and you just feel this sense of awe? Or maybe looking at the ocean. This is really an act in spirituality because it's recognizing that you're just such a small being in comparison to a bigger universe. Now, what I want to share with you now, this is going to be fun, is to talk about some meditative micro meditations that you can do. If you're not already meditating, that's fine. I know meditation's not for everybody, but what I would like to share are some mental fitness practices that can help you just manage those stress, negative emotions, and kind of ground you. So what I would really appreciate if you would humor me and close your eyes, and then I will tell you when to open your eyes. And if you're doing multiple things, this is going to be brief. Just, please, I think you'll get more benefit if you close your eyes. So just take a nice breath in and just slowly let it out and just kind of sink into your chair. Or if you're standing, then feel your feet and legs kind of as they're grounded on the floor. I want you to just sink into your body and notice for a moment if you are experiencing or feeling any tension anywhere in your body, anywhere. Starting with your neck, just slowly roll your neck clockwise. And if you get to a certain spot that feels really good, then just lean into that stretch. Just lean into it and see how that feels. Just keep rolling your head gently. And then next, I'd like you to just gently roll your shoulders. Small shoulders, roll your shoulders backwards, just slowly. And just notice how that feels. And then gradually increase the size of the roll until your arms and your hands even are kind of getting into the roll. And just notice how that feels. If you want to kind of shake your arms out a little bit as you're doing this, feel free. Again, it's really focusing on what feels good to you. And then next, I want you to notice if you're holding any tension in your back, especially maybe in your lower back. And if so, I want you to just gently twist in your chair, or if you're standing, just sit at your waist and just gently twist from side to side. Just move your body in a way that feels good. Just gently stretching your body as you move from side to side. And notice those stretches and how they feel. And next, with your eyes still closed, I'd like you to take your right hand and rub the index finger and thumb of your right hand gently. Just gently rub those two fingertips together and notice all the sensations. Are they dry? Are they smooth? And what's the temperature of your fingertips? And then lastly, with your eyes still closed, I want you to focus on the sounds around you. Now, obviously, I am talking, so it could be the sound of my voice. If you're close to a window, it might be an outside noise that you hear, like a bird chirping, dog barking, car passing by, maybe an airplane. If you're in a quiet space, it might even be the sound of your breath. I want you to just quickly notice all of those sounds around you. And then when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. How does everybody feel? Feel any different? Nice. Relaxed. Relaxed. Excellent. Excellent. Well, that was the purpose. So this is something that you could do if you're starting to feel really stressed. Now, if you have a quiet space that you could do this in, that's great. I recognize at work, sometimes that's very challenging. So when you go to the bathroom, and you don't have to do it for as long as we just did this, but as you're sitting or standing, if you're a guy, as you're just standing there or sitting, maybe focus on what you can hear. Or when you are washing your hands at the sink, just notice the sensation of the water and your hands rubbing together as you put the soap on them. And just notice how that feels. And also as you're drying your hands, how does that feel? You could also notice how when you're walking across the room, how do your feet feel on the floor? Notice if your shoes, if the arch of your foot is being fully supported in your shoes. How do your toes feel? Little things like that. And again, we call those micro meditations. And they just kind of take the focus of all that garbage that can really cause a lot of stress and anxiety. So those are some examples. Now, I want to share with you that tip that I promised for those who are struggling with sleep. And I want you to close your eyes again. And this is going to be real quick, but please close your eyes because it'll help. And with your eyes closed, I want you to imagine a big red stop sign, similar to one of those stop signs that you see at a four-way stop with flashing lights, often in a school zone. And I want you to say firmly to yourself, stop, stop. Now, you don't have to say it out loud. You can say it to yourself. In fact, you said it out loud and you're in bed with somebody, you might freak them out. So don't do that. Just say it to yourself, but say it firmly. Stop, stop. And then I want you to focus on the breath. And as you're inhaling through your nose, I want you to think of the word so, S-O. And as you exhale slowly through your nose, I want you to think of the word hum, H-U-M. So it's so, hum, so, hum. Now, as you're doing this, your mind is probably starting to wander. So then I want you to imagine that stop sign again and say firmly to yourself, stop, stop, stop. And once you've done that, go back to focusing on your breath. So, hum, so, hum. You can open your eyes if they're still closed. Now, what you're doing with the stopping is you're self-commanding your brain to stop that mind chatter that is keeping you awake. You've got your brain's attention. Now you can do the meditation of focusing on your breath. And the so and the hum refer to the sound that your lungs make in your deepest restorative sleep. And we call that deep delta sleep. That's the deepest sleep that we have each night, and that's where we really start to heal our body. So this may seem weird, but I'll tell you it works. And I share this at conferences all the time. And I've had people, if it was in person, come up to me like the next day and say, oh my gosh, this really works. And it does. So the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And when you get really good at it, you're asleep in a couple seconds. The first time you do it, it might take you a minute or two, but I guarantee it works. So, oops, what happened there? Sorry about that. Okay, so quickly to go through this, I know we're getting close on time. So some other practices, playing with your kids, especially if you can incorporate things that you can do together as a family, like maybe cooking a meal or playing a board game. Listening to music has very calming, restorative properties, can lower your heart rate. We talked about activity. If you're not a huge fan of activity, get a walking buddy or put in some earbuds and listen to your favorite podcast or music, or maybe call a loved one that you haven't talked to in a while. And then reading, somebody mentioned reading, and you can listen to a book, and then lighting a candle. So that's another way. Scents, just like music, have been known to be very calming and soothing. So moving on, I would like to hear from you. I want to know if this was helpful. If you found some tips today that could be helpful. And the best thing that you can do, and we do have the time for you to do this, is if you would take out your phones and, oh, I'm so glad. Thanks, Brad, is scan this QR code and take a short 1-minute survey. It's super short. And basically, it's critiquing this presentation. And it's really the only way that I know if my presentation is resonating with the audience. So if you like something, please share why you liked it. If there's something that I didn't do well, please share that too. And I really take this feedback to heart. I will tell you, I have actually made modifications to presentations based on audience feedback. That's how much I care about your honest feedback. So you get a free workbook, which actually pairs with my book as a thank you. So if you would please do this, I'm going to give you maybe another 30 seconds. And then when you're finished, if you would write done in the chat, and then we're going to do this call to action. Oops, let me put this back in case you need it. So if you just quickly do this. Yes, Soma, that would be great. Go ahead and unmute everyone. Done. Outstanding. Done. Done. Okay. I'm just going to wrap up here. If you're still working on this, that's fine. Take your time. I appreciate that so much. And let's go back to this final question, and we're unmuting. So I would love to hear from you. We talked about a lot of different things, from asking for help to healthy boundaries to getting a hold of your schedule and different mental fitness practices and ways to experience joy. So I would love to hear from several of you. If you just quickly shout out, what is something that you can commit to doing to create more balance in your life? And if you want to put it in the chat, you can, if you don't want to talk, but you are unmuted, so you can. You must still be actively working.
Trying to do that sleep thing.
Okay, awesome. I love that. It does work. It does. Like I said, if you're really hijacked, then, you might have to use that stop several times, but I guarantee you will go back to sleep. Couldn't unmute, but putting it down on paper, getting it out of my head. I love it. I love it. Anybody else? Recommit to self-care. It's a work in progress. It is. Give yourself grace. This is something that we didn't talk about. You got to give yourself grace. You're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. You're human, and that's just the way it is. And you've got to learn to love yourself. Get back to working out or even just walking. I love that. So Evelyn, what's something small that you could start with? Really small.
Probably just walking during breaks.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. And maybe you start with once or twice a week, something super small that you can build upon. Anybody else? Or do you have any other questions or comments? I think we have maybe a minute or two. I'm going to stop sharing. Done. Yeah, any comments or questions before we wrap up? All right. Well, y'all are amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you for just being so active in the chat. I'm printing my workbook. Yay! I love that. I love that. And if you have any questions and want to chat with me, I think you have my contact information there. I'm happy to chat with you if you have any questions. So that's great. Yes, use that workbook. And with that, I'm going to say thank you. Appreciate your time. And here's to creating more balance in your life. Have a great day.